Welcome to Empire Building. I'm Wendy Papazan, and together with my 4 co-hosts, we bring you weekly unfiltered conversations about leadership, growing a big empire, and living on your own terms.
I'm Kimber Levitt-Mankiti. We are investors and wealth builders with over $75 million in combined net worth.
I'm Sarah Reynolds. We are visionaries who built more than 50 businesses with over $122 million in annual revenue.
I'm Tiffany Fikes. We've led thousands of people and do it all while being pretty good moms.
And I'm Seychelle Van Poole. We are your podcast to learn how to build big businesses and even bigger lives.
Hi, everyone. It's a new week at Empire Building podcast, and we are so excited to be with you today. I have the honor of being together with 2 of our remarkable co-hosts, Tiffany Fikes and Seychelle Van Poole. And it's going to be a great day today as we dive into a secret.
The secret, not just a secret.
This secret is very important for you as a leader and an entrepreneur to know because, you know, when we look at business planning and we look at goal setting and that whole season is upon us during this time of the year, there's actually a really, 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 really important secret that no one talks about that you must do before you host any business plan or put any business plan together. And that is you have to get yourself in alignment and take time and ask some really important questions, all of which we are going to give you today. So I'm going to ruin part of the secret, which is we're going to give them to you. But you must take time and take a step back and really, as a leader, have some white space to ask these really important questions we're going to give you before you can give yourself permission to jump into your business planning and your team advance and casting your vision for the next year or 2. So today we're really going to focus on you getting yourself and your mindset and your white space and your right questions down on paper and together so that you can show up as the best visionary and leader for your organization when you cast your business plan moving into the next year.
That's good. It reminds me of there's a chart that many of us know, and I had this like all over my office, and I really like to focus on the being accountable, right? As the leader before we go into business planning for the next year and, you know, planning in advance or a retreat, whatever you might call that with your team, right? Are you seeking reality of where things are? Do you acknowledge reality? Are you owning your part in where the business is at? And are you finding solutions? And are you moving forward, right? And so those things are something that I like to remind myself of as I'm getting ready, right? Because so many times we're like tempted, I think, to sort of just go on autopilot. I mean, so many of us go on autopilot as we're building the business, as we're building our empire, and we just want to repeat, you know, what we did last year, or maybe you didn't hit your goals and you're like, let's just keep the goals the same, you know, and let's see if we can hit it this time. But we think it's really important to take a step back and take that space, that time, what we call at Empire Building Podcast as white space, have it on your calendar to where you have prep time, that you're focusing on your mindset of where you actually want the direction of your company to go.
And so we're not going to be tempted to just repeat last year because it was convenient. And we're not going to blame the market or blame team members for the reasons why we didn't hit our goals. We're actually going to dive into the things we can interrogate and be accountable, right? And show up as the amazing leaders that we know all of you are. And so we're going to give you a list of agenda items that we want you to write down. And if you're driving, maybe like do it at a stoplight or pull over or listen to it on a walk so you can take notes. But we want you to write these things down and really investigate them and think about them and make sure that you're considering these things as you're looking at casting your vision and putting your business plan together for next year.
Well, and I think the first thing that I want to like accentuate, Seychelle, from what you just said is you need to have the white space for this and figure out for yourself, like, what does white space look like? How do I do that for myself? Because how we all do it, I think is very different. And so maybe at the end, if we have time for that, we can talk about how do we find white space for ourselves. But I just want to acknowledge, like, sitting in an empty room or at a whiteboard may not be your white space that you need for this. Okay, so what are we going to do once we have the white space? Number 1, you need to keep your goals in front of you. So like, let's re-examine last year's goals or what I think next year's goals are. are the goals you've had in the past, the goals you want moving forward, and really understanding and being truthful about that. And they may go up, they may go down, they may be exactly the same goals. But don't just assume, because we've always done these kind of goals, that that's the right goals for you. So get clarity on what you want and make sure it's still the direction you and your organization want to go in. I always tell everybody, put it all on the table. Dump it all out. It's that, I'm going to date myself here, but it's that scene in Apollo 13 where they're like, dump it all out on the table. This is everything they have.
What can we do to solve the problem?
Right. How does it go together? And I literally, I know it's not exactly about goals, but it's like, this is literally everything on the table that they have to use. And so that's what I try to do is I'm not going to be precious about any of it. Let's dump it all out and say, is this still the right direction? Is the goal still the goal?
And I think it's important to be thinking personally here as well in terms of like, are you enjoying what you're doing, the role that you're playing in the business, the job that you fulfill? Because what I've realized, and both the easy and hard way, is that a lot of times when I'm not happy, like when I'm not in a position where I'm getting my joy filled, my entire company is not happy. Like, I mean, this is like, to me, happy wife, happy life.
Yeah. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Yeah.
Okay. Well, as the leader, like if you are miserable in your role, okay, your people feel it. Okay. They can feel it. For me, I had a big wake up call this year. I know I've talked about it on some of the episodes, but I had to redo my job description because I was unhappy. And boy, are we seeing a difference in literally 6 weeks. But how often are you taking time? So many times as the leader, we're just fulfilling what needs to happen. We feel responsible. So we're just doing the job that needs to happen. The truth is that we should be doing the job that we are working within our strengths, that we are filling our joy zone, and then filling other roles and filling people and putting people in positions to the things on your not to-do list. And this is the time to get, a lot of times we say it's selfish. It's really not selfish because the entire team, the entire organization benefits when you are in your joy zone. So this is the time to think through yourself. Look at yourself. Are you in a position that is bringing you joy? And maybe it means that you need to reauthor your job description, right? You need to rewrite your job. And this is what I want my job to be. And then fulfill the rest of the roles that need to happen.
And something I think about too is like, we all as leaders and humans go through different seasons and stages of life. And so I know too, something I think about is like, how much time do I physically have to allocate to this role in my current stage of life? And so like before Quinn was born, I had 12 to 15 hours a day I could dedicate easily, effortlessly, and without guilt or constraint. And I would be out the door at 6:50 every morning. I wouldn't get home until 8 o'clock at night. And, you know, it wasn't a problem because Nick and I could meet up for dinner and do something work related in between. And then all of a sudden you have a kid and then they're a baby and that's a different time constraint. And then they start school and you have school pickup and that's a different time constraint depending on what your support structure looks like. And so I love that we're thinking about it personally, the joy in the role, and then also in the business, because I think also too, make sure you're just doing a check with yourself of like, what season are you in? Because I know even as Quinn's getting older, she now has after school programs that don't run the same. It's like I've gotten all the hours back that I didn't have before. So I can do more now than I could 2 years ago. So make sure you're also like doing a time audit of like, is my role the right role for me? Am I doing the things and my strengths? And what is the time I'm allocating towards it so that I can make sure that I'm showing up as the best person with the time I can give?
So keeping your goals in front of you, as well as looking at yourself internally and making sure that you're in the right seat and your people are in the right seat, right? And looking at your organization. The second thing that you want to do during this white space is you want to acknowledge the wins, okay? I think so many times we always want growth and let's do it better and let's reinvent and all of these things. And the truth is our people need to hear about the wins. What did you celebrate this year? What are things that you accomplished? Maybe you didn't hit your family served goal as an example, but maybe you took more market share. well, that should be celebrated, right? So what are the wins? What's created joy? What's created success across the team, across your company? And then how can you acknowledge them? Like, so think through the wins, and then what are maybe creative ways that you could acknowledge those wins at the team advance or at the team retreat?
I love that. Well, and something that I think Tiffany does a great job with this too is also like, how can you plan the fun in with it so that there's that you're just so good about bringing joy and fun into a team environment or a team gathering. And I think about like acknowledging the wins. I also think about like, how can you build in joy intentionally into it, where it's not just another long day long meeting, but it's like, how are creating collaboration and joy and playfulness and like sparking some of those cool things in your wins too, which I think is really cool. The next one is, in your white space, is actually taking time to recast your vision for yourself and your organization and practicing it, actually. You've talked about your goals. You've talked about your personal goals and your business goals. You've written them down and adjusted them for what you want. Now, if you were to recast that and recommunicate that to your, like, don't let your team advance be the first time these words are coming out of your mouth. Let's just all shake hands and agree. I'm shaking across my camera here right now. We're not gonna do that. So recast your vision and make sure that it connects with you on a deep level. And when it's coming out of your mouth, like, is it something that's resonating? Is the mission and the vision and the way in which we're going about it still resonating deeply within you, that you're passionate about it? And if it's not, take the white space right now to adjust it, to ask those questions. It's okay to date the mission. You don't have to be married to it forever. So just make sure it's really reconnected so that when you're around your core group of people and you're casting it, it's something that really means something and connects deeply with you, and you know why.
I love the say it out loud a lot. And when we're talking about like, don't let the team advance be the first time that you say it, let's also commit not for it to be the last time that you say it either. Because to your point of dating it or whatever, like, keep revisiting, keep talking about it. It's, as a leader, that's one of the things that doesn't come naturally. And so I try to make sure that there's a rhythm for that, for sure. Okay, so here's the next thing that you need to be looking at: expenses.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know. Dun, dun, dun. Everybody loves this one. But you need to look at all your expenses and recommit to what you can and cut anything else. And that may not be the sexiest thing or the most exciting thing, but I know that's what I'm spending a lot of time on right now is what expenses am I recommitting to and which ones am I going to cut?
With that, our biggest expense for most of us is our people, right? And I always think about when I am recasting the vision and I look out in the crowd, is there a face that I'm like, I don't want them part of that vision? And guys, I know all of our listeners, you guys have these people that you have like just held on to. And this is the time, like our team knows, that those that have been with me a long time know this is also Sarah's like clean house. Like anyone that we know is not committed, that we've been sort of prolonging, making a decision about, it's time to cut them. Okay. We have multiple episodes about how to do it the right way, but it's really important that we're cutting expenses. And then also we have the team in place that you're really wanting to be in place when you are recasting that vision. And so take the time to make those hard decisions and have those conversations.
That's so good. Yeah. It's a perfect time. And like, I'm even going line by line through our expenses, which is really annoying. Normally you just look at the P&L. Like, I'm literally looking at all of our credit card expenses right now. And like our ops team is doing that too, of like really like making sure that what we're, to Tiffany's point, I love that phrase, what are we committing to keep going? Like, what are we recommitting to is really it. Your next one I want you to think about is, and this is actually a great one to even ask if you have a team or an organization before you go into your like white space time, is what do I not know that I need to know next year? What education am I missing? What relationship am I missing? What skill am I missing that either I as a leader need to learn or that my team is going to need to learn that I can plan in for next year? And so like we try to look at like a quarterly cadence for what our education looks like and to pepper that in. And so I really try to pay attention to both our sales organization and our leadership organization, like what are the key skills that we're really going to have to double in on? And you may not have the whole year mapped out, but Q1 next year, what is the focus for the education that we're going to need that we can all lean in and make sure we're learning? Or on an individual growth plan, what does that need to look like? I think if you can get ahead of it and really thinking it out, you can schedule classes, you can attend training, you can network with people and get coaching sessions and ask for help in different ways than when it's a knee-jerk kind of kind of a reaction. So I like being really intentional and thinking through that so you can map out and really plan your growth plan for at least Q1 or Q2 at a minimum.
One of the ways that I do this is that every year I give like a Sarah's recommended reading list for 2025.
Ooh, I love that.
And it has to do with whatever I'm seeing the holes in the organization to be. And so thinking through what are the books, what are the classes, what are we wanting our people to learn in 2025 and years to come, right? And then putting that together before your retreat, before your advance.
Love that idea. Totally stealing it. That's great.
Yes. And then the next part that you want to be doing as you're getting yourself ready to lead an amazing retreat, an amazing advance, setting that business plan for the next year is something we say often around here, but you got to lean in to your circle. We do not believe that you should do this business building thing alone. Okay. To go fast, go alone. To go far, to build a true empire, okay, go together. So do you have your core people? Do you have a core circle that's bought into understanding your goals, not just for business? I remember the first time I got asked to be part of our circle that now we call the Empire Circle, but it's the first time that I got asked to be part of the circle. And I was so excited. I sent the circle an email of all of my goals for the next year. And my amazing friend, Seychelle, because we've known each other for so long, even before I was part of the circle, calls me and goes, "So this isn't what our circle is." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "You have only business things. Like you have 15 business items that you want to grow in, and our circle helps with life too. And so you need to be thinking about how you want your life to grow." And I was like, at the time, I was like, "What? What do you mean? Like business is life." Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a true story. Okay.
It is. And it absolutely is.
And boy, have I grown because of my circle. I mean, this week alone, I was asked to do a coaching call with someone, part of the Her Best Life community. And she went to talk about health to Sarah Reynolds, not business, health.
I was so proud, by the way, when you told us that. I was like, I mean, you've been doing it now for years, but I'd still feel that twinge of like, yes, every time. It's amazing.
But the growth is mostly how excited Sarah is.
Yes.
Sarah's excited to talk about health and that somebody wanted to talk to her about something other than business because the value of it now.
Yeah. And without my circle, guys, I would not be in that position anywhere close. Wendy and I talk about this a lot. I might not even be living because I don't know if I would have been able to get through some of the stress that I've had to work through over the last few years. And so your circle is key to making sure that your advance is awesome, your retreat's awesome, but also your year is awesome. So do you have core people, right, that you can count on that want you to live your best life and also live a great business life as well? And are they asking you those hard questions? Because without my circle, I'm telling you, I would be a very different Sarah right now. And so you want to lean into your circle.
Well, and the questions I think are the key, Sarah. Like the commitment somebody has to your success holistically is the ability to show you your blind spots or to ask questions around that. Like I know, when I've gotten to this point in the business planning where I'm like, okay, this is what I'm thinking. I'll talk to somebody in the circle and they ask questions like, well, why are you doing it like that? Or do you really even want to do that? Or to my analogy earlier, they keep dumping more things on the table that I just thought were a given. And they're like, that doesn't have to be how it is. Like Seychelle talking about reevaluating how you're working, the hours you're working, or where you're working. I know for me, I stopped going into the office because somebody asked me, why do you do that? And I realized it was like a responsibility thing that I was feeling. It brought me no joy. It was actually my worst nightmare of a job to have to sit at a desk and go in every day at a certain time and stay till the end. And then I started becoming more joyful. And to Sarah's point, like when the leader is more joyful, but without somebody to have seen me and known me enough to say, hey, this thing, or to know Sarah and say, hey, this whole part of your world, like, are you giving it the right time and attention? That's the value, is those questions that you give them permission to ask you that may be uncomfortable.
One of the things that led to me redoing my job description and me understanding my joy is we were with our circle in August, and it was just a few of us. It wasn't the whole circle, but it was the power of the circle is it doesn't always have to be everyone, but it was a few of us. And Carissa was like, you're not normally this negative and you're not normally this unhappy. Like, what is going on? Like, this is not the Sarah I know. And it was like a wake-up call for me of like, what's going on? And then I realized I'm not in my joy zone and work. It's bleeding everywhere else. And so it took a conversation with my circle that sort of led to now I'm so happy. And so are you leaning into your circle? Do you have that circle, right? I think that's what I'm so passionate about with Her Best Life Empire Circle, is because we're seeing growth in the females, like exponential growth, not just in business, but in their life. And it is so rewarding to watch us be able to extend the growth that we've had to another group of women that are part of that community. So it's amazing.
Yeah. It's one thing to have people asking you questions that are on your payroll. It's an entirely different thing to have people that are vested in you and your best self that don't need or want anything from you. We're going to ask very different questions if my livelihood doesn't depend on how you respond to that answer. And that's the power of having a really strong core circle that's not on your payroll. Because I know in my head, I'm like, before this, I was like, I have a great group. My ops team is amazing. My, so-and-so's are my best friends. Yes, they are really, really, really good, amazing, trusted friends. And they ask different questions. They're awesome. And they ask different questions.
Okay, so once you have done all of these things, you've reevaluated your goals, you've acknowledged your wins, you've recast the vision in your own head and with your own mouth before you go to this retreat. You've looked at your expenses, you're educating yourself, or you're focused on where are the education gaps, and you've kind of run all that by your circle to say, where are the holes? Like, what am I not seeing? Then you're ready to engage your team. And this is where you want to get tactical and planning your business planning. And are you able to give specific direction to your team? But it kind of builds. Like this one, you don't get to do until you've done all these other steps, because this is where you start the actual business planning and the actual leadership of your team.
And I think talking with your team and giving them some of these tips as well. Like if you're leading a real estate team, right? Your agent should be thinking about their goals and evaluating how their year went and things like that. And you might do that during the advance, but how can you do that if you don't give direction to them in terms of getting their mindset right? It's really like a mindset giving. This day is precious. Okay. No phones. Like let your clients know that you're going to be returning calls during breaks it's a critical day. I say all the time, it's arguably the leader's most important day of the year, is setting the tone for the next year. And so what are things that you need to communicate to your team ahead of time to make sure you get the most out of that time together?
One thing that we did this year is we're doing a personal SWOT analysis. And so leading up to our retreat, I giving them the instructions on how to really evaluate SWOT for themselves personally. What are your strengths? What are your personal weaknesses? What are your opportunities? And what are your threats to your goal? And revisit this. And basically, not all of these steps, but going through a lot of them, like, here's the thing that I need you to do such that when you walk through the door, I'm ready, you're ready, and we're going to make the most of this very precious time, just like Sarah said, the most important time of the year.
And to your point, Tiffany, that you said earlier, right, is recast the vision often. Make sure you're not setting the goal and then forgetting it. I think that's something we've all learned is really precious, is making sure those goals stay in front of you where you're not picking it up for goal setting the next year for the first time since the year before. And so really making sure there's a connectivity to that and that your team members and you are revisiting this goal happily, often, and with a fine-tooth comb so that you can really make sure you're meeting and exceeding all of those things. Everyone's growing their empire, which is a beautiful, wonderful thing. I do want to invite you, if you were listening today and you said to yourself, I don't have that circle in my life, I just want to encourage you to go check out Her Best Life and ask us about Empire Circle, because we do accept select members. It is something that we have so much joy in getting to pour into these amazing female leaders. And so if you're listening today and you're like, I have everything but that, please reach out to us and we'd love to chat with you about it. This is going to be a great time to go and use these secrets to build your big business, and more importantly, to go out there and build that bigger life. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not KWRI and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.